Hey everybody, welcome. Happy Wednesday. We're live for another masterclass session halfway through the week. Today we're showing power users how to create curved horizons, very much like this map that you see right here. Now the logic is it's a fantasy regional style because it's not a whole globe, it's only part of a globe. So it kind of makes sense that it's just the region instead of a fantasy, like an entire world map. But it's totally okay if you want to do fantasy world with this. Just there's scenarios in which this might be helpful. For instance, you have one large like Pangea-like continent on your world and it's situated at maybe one of the poles, or maybe you just like the curved horizon style and you want to make a map to that kind of style. So it's useful for many ways. It's up to you which one you want to use. And of course, all the techniques and steps that we do in this masterclass, this stream, it can be applied to using Fantasy World or Parchment World. So you're not limited to that, okay? So same techniques can be used here. Let's go ahead and get started. So first we're going to create a new map. We're going to use the fantasy regional style. I'll go ahead and click this. We're going to choose the style. I'm going to go ahead and label it right away. I'm going to call it Curved Horizon. Now I'm going to also just go to Ultra 4K for my editing resolution. If you have a lower end machine that just isn't quite as powerful, I recommend you use maybe 2 or 3K so it's not so taxing. And I'm going to use your basic landscape. The landscape makes more sense with a globe or with a curved horizon than a portrait would be, unless you were planning on having lots of things in space above the actual horizon part, the globe with the horizon. So landscape will probably be your best choice. We'll create a map, new map, and let that load up. I'm sure you've noticed that we've been able to capture the mouse as well so that you can see that. I know that wasn't doing that before, and I apologize. So we have that now. All right, let's go ahead and get started. So as always, I'm just going to kind of just bring the editor, change the editor like this. Of course, if you want to do this, if you want to be able to pan and zoom, all you need to do is just push the space bar and you'll be able to move the canvas like this. Mouse scroll wheel to zoom in and out. Hey, Pedro. Hey, Human Gamma Bomb. Andrew Lord Gwyn. Awesome. So many good faces here. I'm glad to see everyone here. So the first thing we should do is we should talk about scale. So the more curve there is means that the more further away that you are from the horizon, right? Or closer to the surface, like that sphere. If you are on the surface of the sphere, you're so close that you wouldn't even see the curvature. It would just be a straight line, right? That's what it looks like when you're on the surface. So the trick is here, if you are using Fantasy Regional, you probably want to show less curve so that way you can show more and you get the scale right. If you're more zoomed out for using the fantasy world style, then you're probably going to show more curvature. So let me show you how I go about doing that. First, you're going to want to select the mask tool. You're going to make sure the add mode is selected. This will change with 2.0, but there'll still be a way to do it. It's just that the tool set will have changed just a little bit. You're going to go ahead and use the ellipse. And then from here, I'm going to go ahead and turn the grid on. I'm going to use the grid as a guide for center, and I'll change it up to 20 like this. And now it'll be a little more easier. And then I'll go ahead back over to the mask tool, and I'll go ahead and choose that ellipse. I'm going to go ahead and snap to grid as well. And what I'll do from here is I'm going to go ahead and select the center here. And then from here, I can go ahead and select. So if you're doing it to where you're seeing, if you're doing like fantasy world, then you might want to have this much curvature on your curved horizon, right? Because it's a more zoomed out. So this will be the better choice. Hey, first time chatter, by the way, I'm glad that you're here. So if you're doing fantasy world, this much curvature would work better. If you were doing fantasy regional, more zoomed in, then you would probably see less curvature on the horizon. So a little bit about scale there, right? If you're using Fantasy World, make it more pronounced. If you're using Fantasy Regional, less pronounced. So that's going to be helpful, right? So once I've done that part, I'm going to pick how much curvature I want. like this, and just make sure that it's centered. I think about that looks good. I want to have some room at the top up here so that I can have some things up in space, or maybe I want the mountains to be tall enough or whatever. So I'll do that. Then I'm going to go ahead and press add, and it's going to go ahead and it's going to create a mask with the add mode of the mask tool here. And what it will do is it will now be able to pick up different textures, and I have that nice curvature there. Now, you'll notice that the mask effects are on. You'll find the mask effects here. And the way that this works is that you want to have, let's see here, we'll go to enable mask effects right here, click here, and I'm going to go ahead and do this so I can remove that. Enable my mask effects, and you see all the different effects that are here. I don't want to have a black stroke. I want to have a white one instead. I think that will work a little bit better. So now you see I have that white stroke there. The white outer shadow works good, and the inner shadow being a little bit darker, I think that works just fine. We can keep those. Make sure to turn your ripple effects off, because the ripple effects will also be in space and not just the water below. So make sure you turn off ripple effects. But I think these settings right here will be fine. A white stroke and then the other default settings in the fantasy regional style will work just fine. Okay, so those should be good. I'm gonna go ahead and just kind of zoom in, take a look at it. So we've got all that working out. That looks fine. That looks good. All right. So the next step is to create the ocean below. And the way that this works is that there needs to be land connecting both sides of the canvas. Otherwise, you're going to remove the curvature. Okay. Now you can use a line to get the same effect, but you still have to fill it in with the add mode of the mask tool. Okay. So the next step is I'll go to the mask tool. I'm going to go to the subtract mode. With the subtract mode, I'll bring the size down, and what I want to do is remove things at the bottom part. So maybe like 4 or 5 cells up. So let's say that I want to create some unique kind of terrain. What I'll do is I'll go in here and just kind of remove it this way and go like this. Add some here. Let's go here, and let's maybe have some curve in here like this. And then we'll cut it off right about here like this. And we can add more as we go. I'm just putting things together. From here, we can also go over to the bucket, subtract, and then I can subtract this part. Now, a lot of it seems to be kind of missing here, and that's okay. We're going to go ahead and fill it in a little bit more. Like, I don't like how much I kind of cut off right here. That doesn't look good. And let's maybe make this horn right here a little bit more pronounced. Then let's put in like a nice little kind of arrowhead-like shape, like this. Just want to get the main landmass parts done. Let's make this a little bit bigger, about this size here. And then I'll show you how to do, if you want to not have the landmasses go from one end to the other. We'll show you how to do that. First, let's get to this part. And whenever you're making the landmass shapes, I just kind of use the edgy brush as a good start. And then what I'll do from here is it looks kind of odd. I don't really like the mask effect setting. So what I'll do is I'll just change the stroke color to be a little less pronounced by bringing it further into the gray. There we go. And now it's not quite as pronounced. That looks good. And I can go ahead and turn the grid off. I don't really need that anymore. So I'll just turn my grid off. Now that's off. That looks good. Let's go ahead and do a couple things here. First, I'm going to add some like smaller islands, because right now it just kind of looks like there's just this big chunk of landmass. There's no archipelagos. There's no small islands or anything like that. So we'll make sure to add those. We'll go with the edgy brush again. This time I'll go ahead and turn off the smooth and then bring the roughness down to 3. And then I'll bring the size of the mouse a little bit smaller, right about here. Let's go about 20. That looks about the right size. And then I can go in and start adding in some islands. If you remove this part right here like this, by the way, someone's asking a question here. If you remove this part right here, you lose your horizon, right? So this is why this trick using the mask tool only works if both the land masses are connected on the left and the right side. But again, I'll show you how to fix that, but you have to give me a moment and I'll show you how to put that together, okay? So we're going to go in this, and whenever you're putting in your land shapes, we'll go back to the add mode here. I'm going to add some like archipelagos, some islands. So we'll start here. We'll add an island here. Yeah, don't worry, we'll get to that other part here, because I know that some of you are like, well, what happens if my landmass doesn't cover the whole thing? And I totally understand that. The only reason why I'm going with this one is because it's this particular trick using the mask tool, and it is a regional map instead of like a world map where you would probably see a lot more. So that's just the logic behind this. But I absolutely will show you the trick on how to do that. So first we'll go through here. I'm going to add in all of these little smaller islands with the smaller brushes here, and I can go ahead and delete things as I see fit. For now, I'm just kind of putting things together. We can even have some stuff be off screen. That's fine. Let's add a little island here. How I decide where to add islands is really just a matter of just being kind of random. You can use like a plate tectonics and stuff, but for me personally, I like to add a little bit of islands a little bit everywhere. And the reason why is because of transitions. For instance, when you kind of look at this piece right here, it just kind of has no transition between the land and the water. So adding little tiny pieces here and there kind of breaks it up. It's just kind of an element that I like to do. You can also use plate tectonics. You can use textures to choose your land masses. There's a lot of different ways to kind of go about doing that. That's up to you. So, but this is one of the main reasons why I like to add in the islands, not just for the realism part, but also because it kind of breaks up a lot of the transition between land and water, and I find that helpful. The other thing is too, is that when you're making the islands, I would have them conform to the land masses that are around them. You notice that this island right here is kind of conforming around the land mass next to it. Same thing here. I'll kind of move this and have it kind of conform to the shape. That way it kind of looks like it more naturally fits in that space because it's following the outline of the shapes next to it, so that way it doesn't look completely unrealistic. Otherwise, if you have it just kind of looking like this and you're not really following any shapes, it can look kind of odd. So it's helpful when you're making the small islands, wherever they may be, to have them fit to the coastlines that are next to them. That's just kind of helpful. Just a little tip there. All right, so let's go ahead and do the curved part that I was talking about. Sometimes people get kind of confused, like, hey, how do I show the curve and yet also show separate land masses? I'm going to do that for you. Let's go ahead and use the, we're not going to use, you can still use the add mode of the mask tool here, by the way. It's just that we're going to use it in conjunction with the shape tool. Use a circle or an ellipse, change the color to white, because we're going to create the horizon here. And then you'll go ahead and make sure there's no fill. And then what I'll do is I'll go ahead and, let me see if I can turn the preview on. Here we go, preview. We'll turn this size down. There we go. Now it's on preview. That's perfect. And then I'll move this over to here like this. And then I can kind of set this up here to where I'm getting the right shape here. There we go. That looks good. Almost. Sorry, this is kind of freezing up a little bit. There we go. And then I'll go ahead and do plus, and it should show that line right there. Okay, let's go ahead and turn snap to grid off. There we go. All right, and we'll have to redo the mask tool on that. And then from there, you'll also have to go ahead and use a portal. And I'm just going to go ahead and remove these lines till they're off screen. There we go. Now we have that set up. We have that line set up. Okay, that looks good. I would do this, by the way, if you are using the line tool or the shape tool in conjunction with the mask tool. My suggestion is that you absolutely do the line tool first, or the shape tool first, before you do the add mode of the mask tool. Just kind of a heads up. So I'll have to go back and kind of fill this part in a little bit with the add mode of the mask tool, just a little bit. So I'll go through and just kind of fill this up. So we made a little, it's not a mistake, it's a happy little accident, right? So let's go ahead and just kind of fill this in wherever that line is, like this. Just kind of fill that in. There we go, looks good. Get the curve in here. There we go. I'm just going to fill in the stuff that I missed, the mistakes that I made. Oopsie. Fill that in. There we go. All right. And it's okay if it's a little bumpy. That's all right. Okay. So now that I've done that part, now that that curve is there, now I can go in with the subtract mode like this, and I can actually break off a part of the island. See how it might kind of make sense now? You just used either a line or a shape to create the curved part of the horizon. Now I can kind of go in and just kind of remove the shapes that I want here. So I'll go ahead and remove this part. Go in here, move this one. This looks good. We'll move that. And then we'll remove some stuff over here as well. Let's go ahead and push this one in a little bit more this way. And then let's create this shape right here. And then we'll probably disconnect it here. There we go. Looks better. There you go. So pretty easy stuff. So just don't make the same mistake I did and do the add mode of the mask tool first. Absolutely do the shape or line tool first. There you go. So now we can show both. There we go. Much better. And I like it to where we can see both. I think that looks a little bit better. Let's go ahead and make this a little more off screen here. Let's go ahead and fit this in here. That looks good. Let's go ahead and fill in here, add a little shape here. Kind of putting things together and seeing what I want to change. Yeah, let's add a little bit more. Let's add a little bit more space between these land masses. There's not a lot of space in between them, so I'll go ahead and put some space between that. This one here, add a little bit more space. In fact, this can just be a separate island. Yeah, there we go. Much better. Okay, there we go. That looks good. Yeah. Much better. Okay, let's move this one a little bit more this way. There we go. I just wanted to create a little bit of distance between them. Yeah, that looks good. Let's go with that. Let's add some smaller islands with a smaller brush. Small islands that won't have any stamps on them whatsoever. So I'll just kind of go with the add mode here. Going with a couple shapes here. Let's go ahead and add in a couple islands with some archipelago stuff. Technically, this would be at the kind of the wrong kind of scale because it's just so small, but it's okay. I just want to show just a couple small islands here along the coast because I like to follow my little principle. There we go. That looks good. Let's do one here. Let's make a little bit of a bigger one right here. There we go. Okay. All right. 117 changes. Let's quickly just save it. You should also lock the shape, by the way, so you don't accidentally select it because it's so big, right? That thing was massive. See how big this thing is? It's big. So you're going to want to lock it. We'll quickly save it. You should always make do saves about 100 changes or so. Just depends. All right. Okay. So once this is saved, then I'll show you how I approach layering my texturing, and then we'll go over stamps and then how to deal with different angles with this, okay? Also, what I'll do here is I'm going to go ahead and make the sky up here a separate color. What we can do is we'll go over to, let's go to the sci-fi style, and there should be some really nice, like, sky. You could make your own as well, but I say if you can do it with just one texture instead of layering 3 or 4 on top of each other, that would be the better choice in my opinion. And then this one for here, I'm going to go ahead and turn my softness off like this, set to the BG layer. I'm just going to go ahead and start painting up on top of here. It's okay if it goes a little off here a little bit. So let's go in here like this. Just know that I'll have to fix that a little bit. There we go. Fix that. Go with here. It's even kind of showed some spots that I missed, and that's perfectly okay. Go back to texture here. Let's go back to Fantasy World. Or I'm sorry, Fantasy Regional. I'm going to go ahead and choose the water. I believe it's this one. Let me just double check real quick. I think that's it, yeah. And the reason why you're turning the softness off is so that way when you're painting in like this, you won't accidentally have that softness kind of going over it. So a little bit of things, a little bit of work, a little bit more work to kind of do it this way, but it's worth it. And it is a master class. So, and master classes are for those of you who are not of the faint of heart. Okay, let's go ahead and subtract some parts here that I'm missing. I'm using a mouse. Oopsie, I want it to be a curved, by the way, because if I'm doing an edgy brush, that's not going to work very well. Normally, I like to use a pen, but I want to show you how I use a mouse as well, so you can see how helpful it is. We'll go ahead and remove that, and we'll remove some of these parts here. Oopsie. A little bit of work there, isn't it? There we go. Looks good. All right. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and take a step back. I think that looks good. Let's go ahead and do the texturing. So from here, what I like to do is what I'll do is I'll paint the entire FG layer. That's the landmass. I'm gonna fill that with just one brown color for right now, okay? And then from here, what I'll do is I'll use a grass texture of my choice. And what I do is think of like layers, right? What's underneath grass? Dirt. What's underneath dirt? Rock. What's underneath that? Bedrock, right? Now you don't need to show all of those various layers. You need to show just some. So my base layer is always dirt, so that way when I paint on sand or wasteland, I always have some dirt base texture underneath. And if I don't like that base texture, I can always just paint off of it. So what I'll do from here is I'll make sure my softness is back on, and I'll bring the opacity somewhere around 40%. And then I'll bring the brush size down to about a medium size. And what I'll do is I'll just start painting in the inside of the landmass, and I won't touch the edges. Think of it as like operation, right? You're not touching the edges. You're just touching. You're going to add more strokes to the center. So just kind of think of it that way. It's just like operation. You're just going to paint. Don't touch the coastlines. Don't touch the horizon. And then you'll do that first layer of texture. And of course, whenever you're doing texturing, especially when you're doing many brush strokes, you're going to end up doing a lot of changes. So just make sure that you keep track of that and save. And so now that I have my base textures kind of put down, now I can start putting down stamps and deciding what stamps are going to go at what angle, and then tackling the problem of stamps that are closer. That means like that are going to be over here, in this area right here, and this area right here. So we'll have to talk about that. First, we're going to talk about stamps that are going to be at the top or at the horizon, kind of moving our way down. And my approach to this is pretty simple. I don't have to make this advanced guide with all the lines pointing in all these directions and then lining up the stamps with all these simple things. You don't have to do all that. That's all kind of complex in my mind. Instead, what I'll do is I just take a simple mountain stamp, and what I'll do is I'll place one at the top where stamps are going to be straight at 0 degrees, and then I'll rotate it just holding the control key like this, and it rotates it 15 degrees. When you hold down the control key and use your mouse scroll wheel, it'll move in 15-degree increments. So if I move 15 degrees like that, I'll line it up to where it looks on here, go back to 0, go back to another 15 degrees over here. And now I have some stamps that are available to me that are at a certain angle that'll help me to make sure that when I go to select another stamp, for instance, I want to put stamps in this region. If I go ahead and select another stamp, for instance, maybe I want to put down this one right here, it should be at the same angle. Let me check here. Let me place one down first. There we go. And then it should save the last place stamp. Let me make sure that's correct. There it is. See, it places it at the same angle. So what I end up doing is I'll click on that stamp, mountain, place it, and then the next stamp that I select will save those settings, and then I'll always have that there. What I should do is do the rest of them. So I should put another angle right here like that, copy and paste, put another angle right about there like that, and then once I have all the angles kind of proper and set up like that, then I can kind of go in, copy, paste, and now I have these different settings for my stamp set up. And what I'll do is I'll move them a little higher up that they're away. And now I have this nice selection here of angles to work with. So when I'm placing down stamps, it'll just be so much easier. So let me give you an example. So I maybe want to have a mountain range that kind of moves down over to here, kind of like this. So I'll go ahead and do that. What I'll need to do is set the scale. So right now this stamp is at 100%. You can see that's quite large. And this is a decision that you have to make that I think is an artistic one, right? Are you making a stylized map where the stamps are kind of blown out of proportion, the POIs are blown out of proportion so that your players can see more of the art? Or do you want to stick with something that's more stringent, sticking more to scale, and it looks a little bit more realistic. It's not going to look perfectly real, but more realistic because the scale isn't blown out of proportion to show the different details of the art and the location. So that's a decision that you have to make. All right. Now, for me personally, I like the more, like Japanese JRPG type of maps where things are more out of proportion. And I'm not sure which one is more popular. From when I look on the Explore page, I kind of did notice that maps that are more stuck to a more rigid scale do get more popular. So maybe we'll stick to a more rigid scale. So I'll bring the scale of the mountains down. I think about 40% is right. This is still quite large when you think about the scale of the land masses, but I think I'll just I'll kind of compromise and do both. I'll have one where the stamps are not going to be too small. Like if we were going to go more closer to scale, it would probably look something more like this at about 20%, but that will take several hours. So what I'll do instead is I'll just make a compromise, like I said, right? So I'll go ahead and take this stamp. Let's bring it down to about, let's go about 30. That looks good. And I'll just kind of place some stamps like this. And then once I get over to this stamp right here, then that's when I can go back over here and then select the stamp that's going to be at that scale, right? So 352, if I go and select that, here it is. And now the scale is different. And what I want to do is I want to create some mountains that kind of snake down here like this. So I'll go ahead and do that. I'll go ahead and place some stamps that kind of go that way. Maybe not that one. The smaller one looks good. And you'll notice that the mountains are behind the curvature. So I'll have to bring up a line. See how I kind of fix that there? So I have that there. I maybe want to move these. And I can also just move these over a little bit this way. I want to have it to where some of the mountain peaks are kind of going over the horizon. That's going to create this sense of depth. And I might want to consider rotating them just a little bit this way. And then from there, I'll go ahead and create smaller little ranges that kind of branch off. So I'll use these smaller mountains right here. I'll rotate it a little bit. And then, oopsie, I got to go up a layer. My mistake. We'll go up a layer. Let me just make sure it's on the same layer. Nope, it's below. My mistake. Oop. In fact, I should select all of these to make sure that they are on the right layer. Layer 3. Perfect. Just want to make sure that the settings are right. There we go. I'm not going to lock them because I want to be able to select them. All right, so now that I've set that up, that works out just fine. I can go back to these smaller ones, set to layer 3, bring the scale down, and then I can create these like smaller kind of ranges that kind of branch off. Let's go ahead and maybe create one that kind of goes down this way, one that branches off here, and then one that kind of branches off right here. And let's kind of cover up some mistakes I've made so I don't have to I don't have to edit them. Okay, there we go. You can totally change the layer of that if you want. Here's the shape, and I'll just move it down to layer -5. Yeah, it's a great point, Typer Zero. Can't disagree with that. That looks good. Nice choice. And then I can just go in and select all of them and then just put it back at layer 0. Perfect. Thanks, Typer. Great suggestion, by the way. Awesome. Great that we have such a helpful community, right? So now that I've kind of put those things together, I kind of want to put my mountains in. It's just like if you were putting together any kind of map. So I'll go ahead and put in these here. That looks good. And then you're going to put your mountains. I'll start with moving my way down because once you start getting to this area, like right here, this is where you start to see a change in the perspective, right? You're going to see maybe some more top-down type stamps. Okay, so the further we get further down, the perspective will start to change. This can be a little bit challenging, but first we should start with the top and move our way down. Let's go ahead and continue adding the mountain ranges. The angle was off a little bit there. Let's go ahead and put one big one right there. I like that. And then we'll bring it down. Kind of have this one kind of curve a little bit. This one goes here. Another one here, here. Let's go ahead and put another one right there. That looks good. That looks good. Let's go ahead and put some over here. We'll go ahead and rotate it. Now, I am used to using hotcut keys, so you'll notice that I'm not clicking a lot of these. I'm just kind of rotating, but I kind of have an eye for it. If you don't have an eye for those kind of things, just make sure that you use this as a guide. Okay? All right, so let's just keep adding just a couple more ranges. We'll go with the smaller ones as well. Push it up. I don't want to get too close down here again because the perspective is going to change a little bit. So we'll go ahead and change this, add a nice range there. That looks good. Let's add one there. Okay, that looks good. Okay, that looks good. All right. Let's see here. Let's maybe add some small ranges just to give some variety to our mountains. So what I'll do here is make sure that I have the angle right, and then I'll just create a series of smaller kind of ranges. Let's go this one, kind of connect up to here. There we go. Looks good. That one looks good. Let's add a smaller range right here. That looks good. Rotate it, and let's go add a smaller range right here, and then rotate and add a smaller range right there and here. There we go. I think that looks good. The smaller ranges add a little bit of variety, which I kind of like. There we go. That looks good. Okay. Yeah, there we go. Much better. Always nice to have a variety to make it look a little bit more realistic. All right, I like that. Let's go ahead and save. Now, when it comes to biomes here, it's just a regional map, so you don't have to have like this massive plethora of biomes unless you want to. That's up to you. So I'll probably just maybe add in maybe 1 or 2 different types of biomes in this map because it's just regional. If you wanted to make the map more striking, you could create contrasting biomes on this map, for instance, like a desert and a forest region, as well as some plains to kind of balance it out. So you have some flat areas. One of the things that I've noticed when making a regional map or a world map is that your continents can look super busy with having just so many stamps and stuff. And so what can be helpful to highlight certain regions or areas within your map, you can create flat areas like plains that don't have a ton of stamps on it. And what I mean is, like, I'll use some terms here. A negative space, which means there's not much stamps in an area, while there's a positive space, which means there's like a dense concentration of stamps. To make certain areas pop out and to have these contrasts, you maybe want to have like maybe a dense forest and then have a plain biome next to it, so that way you have some contrast between a busy area, a positive space, and a negative space that has less stamps. This is kind of a core principle in art. This is kind of help you out when you're kind of putting things together. Let's talk about how now is it that I would want to put in like mountains on this part over here. And the way that I would do this is to probably use stamps from Battle Map Classic, or not, sorry, not Battle Map Classic, my mistake. That is not the right one. We want to go to Fantasy Battle Map. So I went to the wrong one, this one right here. Open that up. Now you'll notice that there aren't any mountain stamps because with Fantasy Battle Maps, the scale is really zoomed in. So you're not going to have any mountains in this style. But what you do have is dunes. And dunes can work just fine for mountains if you want them to. There's a couple tricks when using these kind of dunes. You can change the blend mode of it to make it match with the texture underneath it. So you can change the blend mode to luminosity. As always, you have to adjust the color adjustments a little bit because all that luminosity does is pick up the texture color beneath it. What it does not do is adjust the brightness settings. So you always have to adjust the brightness settings a little bit to fit to where you want. And I can always bump up the contrast if I want the line work to be more pronounced, or I can bump the contrast down if I want the line work to be less pronounced. So some tricks there when using the luminosity blend mode with these, and that's up to you. So what we'll do here is, now that we've kind of set that setting there, I can kind of go through the various ones, and there's some ones that kind of look kind of mountain-like this one right here. I think this one looks fine. Let's go ahead and use this one, and I'll place it at the furthest point down here at the bottom. I'll bring the brightness down so it kind of matches in a little bit. There we go. And you'll notice too that the shadows of the mountains are on the right side of here and not on the left side. So maybe I should follow that same logic. The shadows on this mountain are also on the left side. It would look a little odd if I had the shadows on the mountains on the left side and then the shadows on the right side of the mountains above it. So just to stick with shadow consistency, I'll bring it down, and I'll bring the scale down as well. If it's too big like this, it seems a little massive, so I'll bring the scale down, and it fits a little bit more to the scale with these stamps here. Now, we don't have any other stamps that I know of that you can use to represent mountains that are in the fantasy battle map style. The other trick that you can do if you want to show top-down landmass shapes is to use the stamp tool and the line tool, and to use a great stamp called Hill. Now, if you open up Hill, there's going to be two variations of it. You're going to notice that there's this craggy hill, and then there's this rocky hill. These are going to work great because what they do is they do show some top-down, I think we'll turn off the shadows there, but you'll notice here that it does show some top-down kind of ridges. So you can use these as well. I think these also work just fine. You'll find that they're available with the shape tool or with the line and shape tools. So I could go over to select stroke and just type in hill, and you can totally use these. You do have to make them a little bit smaller. There we go. You can totally use these to kind of create your shapes as well. Let me give you an example. So I want to go in here and I want to go ahead and create that. Then I can go in with the shape tool here and or the line tool and just kind of create a series of shapes that kind of represent terrain. So you can kind of go a lot of different ways about it. If you want to use a top down, just make sure that you bring the scale down of these a little bit so they're kind of small. There's also, I believe, these hill composites, and these also work just fine as well if you want to use those. Hey, first time chatter says to me, hey, glad, awesome that you're here, by the way. I see you a lot on the server. Loving your recent work, by the way. Good work. These work just fine. Just make sure to turn the shadow off. I find that these work great. You can just use a variety of these shapes and kind of put these kind of together to kind of create a series of top-down shapes. So these also work just fine. So there's a lot of various ways that you can kind of approach the top-down part. I'm just going to use these because I kind of like them, and we're getting short on the time, so I will not be going into too much depth there on that one. So what I'll do is I'll just continue adding in just some mountain-like shapes. Go in here. Let's add another one like there, like that. I think those look good. That looks good. And then I'll put some down here as well. Let's go ahead and do that. Let's put one right here. Let's bring the scale up on this one. And then I'll kind of create this sense of maybe trying to connect them a little bit. Let's put one right here. And let's put another one right. Let's see here. No, I don't think so. Let's go with, no, I think that's always kind of hard to pick which one I got. Let's go with that one right there. That looks good. Make sure that all my shadows are lined up properly. Cool, that looks good. I can even kind of maybe let those kind of connect to each other. That looks good. Okay, all right. So you see a little bit about the top-down stuff. It works pretty easily. Copy, paste. We'll put another one maybe right down here like that. That looks, nope, I don't really care for that. We'll remove that. All right, that looks good. Okay. All right, now that I've added all the kind of landmass stuff, we can kind of go ahead and start painting in some biome stuff, just using a base texture. Like, I think one thing that might be nice is to add in some kind of desert would be good. So we'll go ahead and use a desert sand. And I'll go ahead and continue using the edgy brush. Notice that I used the edgy brush for the land masses. It would make sense to kind of paint the same way. When you're using the edgy brush, though, just make sure that you bring the opacity down quite a bit. I usually bring it to around about 20 or so. I'll turn the smooth off and I'll bring it to about 3 on the edginess. And then I'll go ahead and paint in. Great places for deserts are rain shadow deserts. That's going to be one along a mountain range where there's no rain that goes into that region. Another one is an interior desert. A great example would be like right here where you have, bring the opacity down and the size down a little bit more. There we go. And just kind of do some small edges. This is a great place to kind of put a desert right here. In this region right here. This looks good. I'm just going small brush strokes kind of just getting together. One desert, and we can actually even have the desert kind of go all the way to the coastline here. I think that works fine. So this is going to be a very cold, this ocean or this sea or this part right here is very cold, so you don't see a lot of rain right there. So we'll go ahead and add a nice desert. We can even have it kind of go into here. I want it to be a decent size desert because it's a regional map. So we'll go ahead and add in these nice kind of texturing. Again, texturing takes up a lot of changes, so just kind of get ready for that. There we go. I think that looks good. Okay, that looks good. We'll go ahead and quickly save it, and we'll add in some stamps. Well, actually, what we'll do is we'll continue painting in. We'll paint in all the biomes first, and then we'll add in the stamps. That's generally how I go. I usually do it, at least with a fantasy world or regional style. I'll paint in things, and then I'll blend in stamps as well as we go. You'll notice that I'm not blending in any of these stamps yet, and we will. We'll get to that. We'll identify all the biomes first. Let's go back to fantasy regional, and we'll pick a more. Let's pick a plain of some kind. Or maybe a really bright grassy plain. Let's see, what is this grassy field? Let's try that one. There's our desert. Let's go ahead and put a grassy plain right over here. And I'll go ahead and apply this right here. There we go. That looks good. And it's got some nice bright yellowish kind of texture in there. It's really adding some nice texture, and I really like that. Because what I like to do is pick a texture that's going to do a lot of work for you instead of using a lot of textures, when you can just look for one texture kind of to do the work for you. You'll notice that there's some nice yellow in that texture, some nice green, and that really, really helps to kind of make that kind of pop out a little bit, is using those textures that have a lot. And you can bring out a lot more of the artifacts in a texture by bumping up the contrast. If I go to color and I bump up the contrast like this, you'll kind of notice that it gets a little bit more pronounced. See how pronounced those effects get? They get a little bit more pronounced. So very interesting, right? Whenever you bump the contrast, you have this tendency to kind of cause the artifacts to pop out more. And it also depends on the colors that are in the texture as well. Just a little heads up there. So definitely picking a texture that's going to do more, give you more bang for your buck, is going to be very helpful. We have some light grass here. This texture works fairly well with the mountains here, so I'll try to blend those in. This texture right here has some more of those nice artifacts in it, so I'll kind of add in that nice brown texture in here, and you notice how nice that blends in with the mountain above it. So I'll just go ahead and apply that where I see some mountain here. It'll be nice. Again, you just want to pick textures that are going to do the work for you. No need to do all this crazy texture work when you can just make the textures work for you. So just a nice pro tip there. That looks good. Let's go ahead and paint in a little bit here. Just all in the right kind of places. Mostly where the mountain ranges are, just to get them to kind of blend in better. There we go. Looks good. That blends in well. There we go. Looks good. Looks good. And then I'll bring the brush size a little bit down, a little bit smaller. There we go. Because I'm kind of noticing that I'm getting these big circular blotches when I'm doing these single clicks, and that just doesn't look good. So instead I'll bring the brush size down, so that way I can blend a little bit more efficiently. There we go. Now we have that nice brown texture in there. I think that looks good. So many changes. Okay, there we go. That looks a little better. I'm just going to go ahead and erase these. They just look weird, and I'm not using them, but you probably will. So I'll quickly just save this, and then we'll paint in the last, maybe one more bright green kind of biome in here, and then we'll start putting in some points of interest before we run out of time. It's already 3:44, at least my time. So we'll go ahead and get that. We'll add in one more. Let's go ahead and take a look at our texture options here. I see there's this nice pasture green here. Let's go ahead and apply that and see how well that looks. Maybe I can put that over, let's see here, what's a good spot for that? Let's go ahead and maybe place it over here. And then I'll go ahead and maybe put it on a little bit over here as well, so it kind of carries on to a little bit on this landmass as well on this. A nice little cool kind of trick is to have the textures kind of branch off and kind of carry over across biomes. This is a very kind of nice little trick that you can kind of do to make it kind of blend and match in a little bit better. So you see how that green goes there. Let's add a little bit of green that goes over to here and then maybe to right here. There we go. That should help to kind of really kind of bring that together. Let's go ahead and do a little bit of coastline. I like to have coastlines, so we'll go ahead and use a little bit of desert texture for that. Let's maybe use, that's a classical empire desert. Let's not use that one. Desert, this is a core one. This will work great. All right. Let's go ahead and bring the opacity up just a little bit, and then I'll do my coastlines. So I'll go ahead and just bring in a little bit here along this coastline here. Like this. I'm not going to do every single coastline. I'm just going to do some of them, like that one looks good. And I'll even bring my brush size down. It's a little too big. There we go. Let's go ahead and do this part. Kind of have it fade in right here like this. Let's add this island right here. It could be a lot of shoreline here. That looks good. There we go. Let's go ahead. Let me take a step back. I always like to take a step back and look at it. Yeah, that looks good. I like that texturing there. Let's add in some shoreline along here. And then the texturing technique for this one, again, just single clicks. And the closer that you get to the shoreline, the more pronounced that shoreline or that yellowish texture that you're using should be, right? So the furthest I get away from the shoreline, the less pronounced this desert or this sand texture is going to be. Just kind of remember that trick. So I just go and kind of go in, add a region. What I'll do is I'll just do one region, but just holding down. And then once I've done the region, then I'll go in my single clicks and then do that edge there. It's kind of a way to make it look a little bit more realistic. I like that shoreline. That looks good. Texturing is looking good. Let's add another shoreline right here. Kind of single click it. Let's maybe bring the shoreline in a little bit. Bring it up against here. Remember, it's a regional, so the scale is going to seem a little off there. I think there should be just a couple more. I've got no shoreline on this side, so let's maybe add a shoreline along here, and then maybe have it go down along here. Make it kind of go in a little bit here. Okay. Now it's amazing how much time flies, isn't it? There we go. And let's add in some little regions here. Maybe just add in some little dots. There we go. That looks nice. Let's add in a little couple dots here just to kind of create this illusion of some kind of like depth or height to it. There we go. That looks good. Let's go ahead and add a couple right here too. Dots here. Looks good. Just to add in some transition. That looks good. That looks good. There we go. Let's take a step back and just kind of look at it. Yep, that looks good. We'll go ahead and save it. That's a lot of changes. Texturing. Whew. I can't tell you how many changes. And good texturing takes a lot of strokes. It's just something that happens, right? I mean, there are techniques that you can, make it to where you do less strokes, but I've always just known that to create really good blends, you just have to do a lot of strokes. That's just the way it goes. Okay, so let's go ahead and add in some points of interest before we run out of time. There's only like 12 minutes left. I'll probably stay on a little bit longer, and that's okay. We'll go ahead and just choose some kind of locations that we want. And whenever I am making a map, I always want to create like maybe like a center point. Like maybe there's one location that stands out more than the others. So like maybe like a castle or a fort or something that's going to pop out more. So let's go ahead and take a look here. Let's go ahead and use a large tower. I think that's a good step. I think that'll look good. This is at 30. This is set to 40 and set to 30. So that the scale is set right. Again, this is going to be like highly exaggerated. Let's go ahead and maybe put this on top of the mountains here. What I want to do is maybe place it to where it's going over the horizon, so that way it really, really, really shows the sense of how tall the building is. You can see how high it up it is. We maybe want to add some clouds to show that it's up in the atmosphere, and it's overlapping the horizon to create the sense of depth. So I think that part looks good. We'll add that there. That looks nice. A little trick, if you want to hide parts of the base of the tower, you can always take one of these smaller mountains, bring the scale up like this, and just kind of place it right here like this, and then it looks like it's kind of covered up a little bit, and it should blend in with the mountain kind of below it, so that way it looks like it's kind of caught and snuck in between or tucked in between these peaks. That's a good start. So we have a nice thing right there. That's a nice start. We'll add more to that in a minute. Let's go ahead and add in a couple more points of interest, like a ruin is always a good choice. Let's go ahead and use this one here. This looks good. A good location right here in this open space would be kind of nice. There's this nice space right here. I'll make sure it's rotated. Make sure that it's rotating well here. So we'll add that right in that space. We've got a ruin now. We've got a nice tower up here on the horizon. We'll keep adding more and more points of interest as we go. Let's go ahead and add maybe like a town or a village. If you type in town, there should be a couple options here. You've got this human town, a bunch of towns here. A town, remember, it's a regional style, so you don't have to show every single building. But let's just say that it was a big town or a capital. You probably want to add more buildings. If it's just a small village, then you only really need to add 1 or 2 buildings. Remember, it's a representation. It's not a whole city. Otherwise, you would just be in a city map instead of a curved horizon map, right? So just kind of keep that part in mind. I kind of like this one right here. This looks kind of cool. The scale is a bit big even at 30, so I might consider just scaling it down a little bit. And I'll pick a kind of a good location for that. Maybe right here at the base of these mountains right here is a good choice. Maybe there's a town or a village that or a city that your players have to travel to before they start climbing up the mountain range to get to this tower right here. So a nice little location for that is right there. I'll make sure again to rotate it so that it kind of matches with the stamps. That works well. And then I'll continue adding more points. Maybe just add a village. I see some here. There's a nice human village here. There's a nice village here. We could do either one of them. It's kind of got a green to it, so another good location for a village. This is flat. Remember the logic here. Down here is flat. Is kind of a top-down perspective, so we're not going to add those points of interest there. We'll add them at the top. Let's go ahead and put one over here, and I'll put it on the horizon so that you can kind of see it. And I've noticed that my green texture doesn't really match very well with there, so I might want to take a green texture and just kind of apply it a little bit underneath so that way it kind of matches. There we go. That looks good. Now I have a nice village over there. Let's go put something over here in this corner, in this area right here as well. Let's just make it maybe a small village and just kind of place it right there. And I'll kind of use a couple. Let's maybe put one right here like that. And then maybe one more. Not that one, just use that one. Maybe this one right here. That looks good. And then maybe I can find another one that's a little bit more curved. Let's see here. There we go. That looks good. That's curved. And just to make sure that I'll go ahead and take this mountain and put it, or this small little mountain, and put it right in front of it. There we go. Now I have a decent little village right here. Make sure that I got that curvature right. That looks good. Okay. Now we got some villages. So let's go ahead and add in just a couple more points of interest, and then we'll connect them with roads. But I think you guys get the overall concept. The hardest part is just kind of putting together the globe part. As for, let's go ahead and add in just maybe a couple more points of interest, and I'll show you how to do the top-down points of interest. I'll show you how to do that. There's some desert that we saw there, so let's go ahead and add a desert building. Let's go ahead and add that here. Matter of fact, let me type in desert real quick so I can kind of look up my options here for what kind of desert stuff I've got. Let's see here. There's this giant temple. There's this temple right here. This looks good. Let's go with this one. And what we'll do is we'll have it be a sunken. I'm going to have it be like a sunken temple. So what I'll do to make that work is cool little trick. We'll go over to the shape tool. We're going to go with the brush. We're going to choose blur. We're going to choose fill, no stroke. We're going to choose a clipping mask fill. I'm going to make sure the layer is up two layers like this, and then I'm going to go ahead and just apply a little bit like this, and I'll go ahead and apply that. And now when I have this clipping mask right here, what it does is it hides it, and I'll have this like submerged like tower or temple right here. That looks good right about there. Add some nice curvature to it. In fact, maybe I should have it be facing the other way like this. Maybe that looks better. Let's go ahead and flip this around and then add that. There we go. That looks good. So now you have this nice collapsed like tower here, and it kind of suits better. It works a little well with the wait a minute. Is this a setting, or are you just being creative? This is absolutely just being creative, by the way. This is a masterclass. So this is about using the tool in a way that you wouldn't normally use it, because there is no setting to create a curved globe, though that would be cool. And if you like that idea, you can totally make the suggestion on our Canny site, because that would be cool. I'd love to have an official style where you could just make a globe. So that would be really cool. Make that suggestion. But yeah, this is totally not a default setting. This is just being creative. Again, it's a masterclass. So it's going to be more catering towards the power user, but it's not complex on how to make it, really. I mean, I know it. I always say this, and a lot of people are like, well, it's not easy. I'm like, well, yes, of course. That's what these masterclasses and these streams are for, right? So it will become easier. Just got to practice. Just start with a shape or a line for the curve, and then use the add mode of the mask tool, and then you can start putting things together. So it's not super easy, but it's also not so complex that it's impossible. The creative part is really the bottom part, this part right here, trying to get top-down stamps to fit with the curvature. That, in my opinion, is the most challenging part. And if you were to do top-down stuff, you could use stamps from fantasy battle maps or watercolor cities, though that would look very weird with that kind of cartoon-like style. So that's up to you. And of course, you don't even have to add top-down stamps at all, by the way. That's not necessary. You can absolutely just have it all be these stamps, by the way, because it could be to where the curvature is not pronounced enough to where you actually see a massive perspective change. So just so you know, you can absolutely do it that way as well. It's not going to look bad if you don't. I just wanted to show it that way because some of you might want to do a top-down part the closer that you get in this area of the globe, but that's not required, by the way. In fact, a lot of the ones I do don't. So, and of course, you can always just import your own stamps and stuff to have the top-down. But just so you know, it's not required, and it doesn't look odd to me, by the way, to have the stamps, to use these stamps even in the lower part. Just make sure that you follow the curvature of the globe at the top there, the horizon. Just make sure that you follow that. You don't want the stamps to all be at 0 degrees as you're going down. You want to flip them to make sure, or rotate them. So just kind of remember that. Helpful little trick there. I personally, I don't often do the top down. I usually just use all those stamps, and it works just fine, by the way. It's not really that big of a problem for me. So the other thing that I do want to mention is that there are a couple more like little tips and tricks that you can do to make the globe look a little more like a globe, by the way. You can use shadows and light, by the way. Cool little trick. You can use a color for a fill. Don't merge shapes. We're going to choose the color black like this. And of course, we'll use a circle shape. We're going to have the preview on. And what I'll do here is I'm going to create a shadow, and it's going to create more shadow the more I go further down. So what I'll do is first is I'll go ahead and create the preview. I'm going to have it be at the top layer, and then I'll go like this. And I just want to have be a similar curve here like this. Okay, like that. It doesn't have to be perfect. And then I'll go ahead and go down like this. Maybe just change the curve a little bit. And I'll go ahead and just go add like this. Now I have this shadow here. I'm going to bring the blur up all the way up. I'm going to bring the opacity down like that. And what I'll do is I'll bring the opacity down a little bit. And then I'll copy and paste another one right on top. And then I'll go ahead and place that down like this, so you have a little bit more shadow. Bring the opacity down, and you can create this series, this kind of sense of depth with it, to create this more sense of depth, right? You have more shadow the further down that you go. I'll go ahead and bring that blur up and bring the opacity down a little bit more. There we go. So you can always use shadows to kind of create more depth. You can also use light. Let's go ahead and keep that one right there for now, but you can also use light as well to help you out. So for instance, you can use a light stamp. I think you can go to Fantasy Battle Maps and there should be a light stamp, and you can also take a light stamp, top layer, put it here at the top, and we'll go ahead and just make it nice and wide to where the top part, and then I can just go ahead and add that light right on top. Let's bring the opacity down just a little bit. There we go. See what it looks like when I remove the light. And now you have a little bit more curve, right? You have some shadow down at the bottom part, and then you have some light at the top part, kind of creating this sense of depth using light and shadow. And that's how the real world works too, right? You want to create depth, you have light and interplay between light and shadow to create that sense of depth. That concept is the same in art as well. So cool little tricks. All right, so I think there's not much more to add to the curved part. I just wanted to show you all the basics, how to create the curve, how to create the land masses, how to add the stamps, whether you want to add a top-down perspective at the bottom part of the globe part, or if you don't want to, that's fine. Again, it's not required. Just know that it is way more challenging. You can upload custom stamps. You can use stamps from Fantasy Battle Map style. A lot of different ways that you can kind of approach it. I think that that is the most challenging part. So light and shadow, don't forget to use light and shadow. When it comes to texturing, lots of strokes to get things to blend well together. Lots of kind of cool tricks. Thank you, by the way, Musical Rogue. Appreciate you so much. All right, everyone. I think I've showed all the tricks I think that I can think of for this. You always let me know if you want me to, if you have any kind of other type of maps that you want, if you see maybe on Pinterest, or if you see a map lying around that you really like and you're not sure how to make that style, you should ping me, because this is kind of my specialty. I personally love digging through maps and just saying, like, how can I replicate this style, not the map itself, but the style in the tool. That's always been a fun challenge for me. So if there is a style that you see that you like, feel free to ping me on Discord if you see something, and we can try to maybe mimic that in a future masterclass, because that's all about being there for our community and helping them with the challenges that they possess with map making. All right. Thank you everyone so much. I appreciate you all. I'm looking forward to this stream this Friday. I'm glad that I was able to get the mouse showing. I hope that that was easier for you to follow along now that we can actually see the mouse. 400 and plus videos later, we finally added a mouse. So appreciate your patience there. All right. Please stay safe and healthy. Merry map making, and I will see you all on Friday. Take care, everyone. Bye.